Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, as Israel prepares for its ground invasion of Gaza, Hamas keeps firing deadly rocket attacks into the Jewish state, and Iran threatens to get involved in the war as well. We're going to bring you the story from the Israeli border with Gaza. It looked like the apocalypse. We're going to hear from survivors about what they saw in the brutal Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman explains why he believes Israel will obliterate Hamas and what the war will mean for the future of the Middle East, and how some Israelis are helping the war effort, not on the front lines, but from the sidelines. All those stories and more ahead today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
I want to begin this half hour in Israel, where the military is preparing its massive ground invasion of Gaza, as Hamas is still firing rockets into the southern area of the Jewish state, forcing people to rush to bomb shelters. This time on Sunday, ambassadors from multiple countries were there, and they experienced what Israelis have been going through for years. CBN's Chris Mitchell brings us the story from the town of Sderot near the border with Gaza.
Former Israeli ambassador to the UN and Knesset member Danny Danon brought several ambassadors to the border town of Sderot on a fact-finding tour.
Before the deputy mayor, in case we have sirens, if you look back, you have the green door over there. You all see the green door?
60 seconds later,
Terrorists. No panic, no panic.
Let's go. So now you guys know that you know what to do. You know how it sounds like.
People of Sderot have to experience that.
We go through this a million times a day. We go through this sometimes where there's nowhere to go, so we have to go flat on our stomach. I think there's nothing like feeling it in order to be able to explain it to the world. Imagine doing this with a 4-year-old.
Right now, I feel how the people of Sderot feel all the time. I think we now really experienced in our own eyes what people, children, families from Sderot have to go through, especially these days.
It's over. Game over. We can't continue like this. We forgive them. We try to help them. It doesn't work. They are terrorists. They want to kill us.
why did you bring the ambassadors down here today?
I think it's very important the ambassadors came here and saw what really happened here, the atrocities, to speak with the residents, to hear the horrible stories about the massacre that took place here a week ago. I'm sure they will report back home, because when the pressure will come against us, we want them to speak up.
Meanwhile, Israel's new emergency government stood in silence for those murdered and soldiers who fell in battle.
We work around the clock, teamwork, with a united front. The unity within us conveys a clear message to the people, the enemy, and the world.
Defense Minister Yoav Gallant vowed a mighty and deadly war.
We will reach all the terrorist infrastructures. We will reach all the tunnels. We will reach all Hamas operatives, and until we eliminate them, we will not complete the mission. And it will be a war that will change the situation forever.
Israel is dropping tens of thousands of leaflets to warn Gazans to evacuate to the south and to the sea to get out of the line of fire. But Hamas is trying to stop them. Tension along the Lebanese border increased Sunday, with Hezbollah and Israel trading fire. Israel is amassing tanks and troops, with many concerned about a two-front war. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister told the UN that if the military action in Gaza continues, it will be forced to intervene. The U.S. has dispatched 2 carrier groups to the region to deter a widening war. Speaking on CBS 60 Minutes, President Biden defended Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza.
But look, there's a fundamental difference. Israel is going after a group of people who engage in barbarism that is as consequential as the Holocaust. And so I think Israel has to respond. They have to go after Hamas.
He also had a one-word warning for Iran and Hezbollah if they're considering getting involved.
Don't.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, the New York Times is reporting that Israel's ground invasion has been held up by weather. Any idea on when that invasion might begin?
Well, Ephraim, not sure. I'm not sure how many people know, except the military, exactly when an operation like that will begin. Talking about the weather, we were on our way down to Sderot yesterday. We went through torrential rain. By the time we got to Sderot, it was pretty sunny, as you saw in our video. And just to remind people of what it's like, that's what we did running into that bomb shelter is what people in Sderot and southern communities have been doing for, I don't know, almost 20 years now. And it's very hard to live like that. I mean, people probably have PTSD on a regular basis, but that gives you an idea of what it was like for those people. So when the ground operation, earlier this morning, we talked to a master sergeant in a paratrooper brigade that's actually sometimes operating inside Gaza. You know, I'm sure they're preparing for that invasion, but I'm sure there's boots on the ground right now inside Gaza getting ready for this ground invasion.
Chris, Israel has kept up its assault on Gaza, and the IDF says it took out the terrorists who planned the attack on Israel. What can you tell us about what Israel has accomplished so far?
Well, certainly there's targeted assassinations for any of these Hamas leaders that had any part to do with this operation on October 7, 2023. That's one thing. And as I mentioned, there's operation, these top secret commandos that are going inside Gaza right now, preparing targets, preparing the ground invasion. Let me add one thing, Ephraim. There is an article by former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren. He said Israel really should pay its attention to the north against Hezbollah rather than Hamas. He says Hamas is pretty well contained in the Gaza Strip. He sees Hezbollah as an enemy 10 times as strong as Hamas and feels Israel should turn its attention to the northern border, not to the south. And let me add one thing, and so this has been talked about as well. Perhaps Hezbollah is waiting for Israel to go into the ground in Gaza, get bogged down, and then it would be a prime opportunity for them to attack Israel.
You said earlier in your reporting that Iran is threatening to intervene. Is this likely? What would it look like?
Well, they have said that they will intervene if the IDF and Israel goes into the Gaza Strip. Whether or not that's rhetoric, bluster, remains to be seen. A two-front war, a war with Iran, a war with Hezbollah. What will that look like? It will be like a regional war, Ephraim. It will be sort of the worst scenario for Israel to fight not only Hamas on the south, but Hezbollah. And what we have been told for the last several years is whatever happens on the northern border is not going to be what would be called the third Lebanon war, but the first Syrian-Lebanese front war, because Iran has a lot of weapons and militia or Hezbollah operatives inside Syria. So you can imagine that Syria and Lebanon, what Iran has done there with its proxies, would present a formidable challenge to Israel right now. All the more reason for many Christians to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem and Israel.
Indeed, indeed. Last night on 60 Minutes, President Biden said he still supports a Palestinian state, but he doesn't think that Israel will after the Hamas attacks, at least for now. You agree?
Definitely. I don't see a two-state solution in the foreseeable future, Ephraim. In fact, I think that two-state solution has been dead for a long time. The Biden administration has been trying to keep it alive, but I don't think Israel has any appetite for a two-state solution. Some elements in the Palestinian areas have been actually supporting Hamas. So the appetite right now here in Israel is to destroy Hamas once and for all, its infrastructure, its leadership, and change the whole dynamic there on the Gaza border.
All right, Chris Mitchell reporting from the Middle East. Thank you so much. Coming up, it looked like the apocalypse. That's how one Israeli described the deadly Hamas attack. We're going to hear from survivors of the terrorist rampage when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
The surprise Hamas attack on Israel is being called the darkest anti-Semitic event since the Holocaust. Hamas terrorists spared no one, innocent men, women, and children, when they launched their murderous assault. Mark Martin brings us the stories of who survived the massacre.
We started seeing these horrible things that look like the apocalypse. Burnt cars that have been gunned down, bodies, a lot of bodies. Inside the cars, outside the cars, just like images that I don't know how to describe.
Galia Sofer and her family survived a raid on Kibbutz Mefalsim by hiding in the shelter in their home.
We've lost a lot of friends, a lot of people that I work with. I know that they're kidnapped. I don't know how we got so lucky and why others didn't.
I ran to the safe room, put on vest on my children. One daughter, I gave her a canister of pepper gas. The other daughter, I gave her a club. And on my son, my small son, I gave him a helmet to protect his body. I laid him down on the floor and I told him, whatever comes through that door, we fight. We don't go down without a fight.
Mikal Rahaf, her husband, and 3 children survived the Hamas attack on her community, Kibbutz Nerem, after firing a rocket-propelled grenade at her home and shooting at the door and window. The terrorists could not get into the safe room and moved on.
My kids are trying to pick up the pieces. Every hour that goes by, we understand how big this tragedy is. They lose friends, they lose teachers, classmates.
The organization known as Combat Anti-Semitism Movement provided survivors an opportunity to share their stories. Almog Sr. survived this senseless massacre at the Nova Music Festival, where Hamas murdered at least 260 people and took hostages. He and his friend narrowly missed being shot by a militant.
He went to the back of his truck and pulled out of there a machine gun, a huge one that's like he hold. We did and turn it towards us. Like in this moment, it was clear that it was a terrorist. Bar, my friend, just made a massive U-turn and stopped driving as fast as he can to the other side.
Alon Merrick also escaped the music festival attack.
All these cars, the windows were broken. There was blood on the road, which I later understood that just a few moments before we passed, this Hamas terrorist was on the road firing at every car that was coming.
Combat Anti-Semitism Movement hopes that by sharing these stories, the audience will gain a profound understanding of the human toll of these attacks. The organization's leader wants to inform the world, including allies and friends, what happened to the Jewish people.
It seems that you would imagine 70 years ago, but not in 2023, that people are running in the forest and hiding, and they can't speak in the phone, they can't make any noise because there are terrorists that are walking just beside them and gunshots firing everywhere.
Everything was shattered for us, and the reality that we know now is different. We don't know how to continue from now on and what is going to be.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
Still ahead, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel. Hear his take on what Israel will do to Hamas, as well as what this war means for the future of the Middle East and beyond. We're going to hear from him right after this. Israel is going to obliterate Hamas. That's the assessment of former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman. CBN's David Brody spoke to Friedman about the impact of the war and what it means for the future of the Middle East.
Benjamin Netanyahu's actually said that Hamas's attack would change the Middle East. I'm wondering what he meant by that. How do you see the roadmap going forward now?
Well, I think Israel has been in battles with Hamas for a couple of decades, as you know. And the way they've looked at it in the past has been to, manage the conflict. I think those are the words that they use to degrade Hamas, send them back a couple of years, and then revisit the issue later. Now, everything has now changed because this attack by Hamas, as others have said, as I've said numerous times, the greatest, most barbaric assault on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, this changes the equation. What this tells Israel and the world is that it can no longer manage this conflict. It can no longer degrade Hamas, declare a ceasefire, and go back to its business. They have to end Hamas. They have to destroy Hamas. Have to obliterate Hamas, and that's a different approach, and it's the right approach, and they're going to succeed in doing it. And I think when they do, understand that this whole Middle East, there are common enemies. I mean, part of the Abraham Accords, when we put that together, was built upon the fact that whether it's Israel or UAE or Bahrain or Morocco, all of these nations are battling radical Islamist extremists. And this is going to be the beginning of the end of them, because whether it's Hamas or the Muslim Brotherhood or Islamic Jihad, I think it will draw out and ultimately eliminate these extremists throughout the region.
When you talk about Hamas being eliminated, what does that look like on the ground in Gaza? I mean, literally, they're going to go, the IDF's going to go into, obviously, Gaza. They're going into Gaza. What does that look like from securing the Gaza area as it relates to control? Then they will be then in control on the ground in Gaza. How do you see this playing out specifically?
Look, it's a war. I mean, I think you look at it, we've had wars in our history, and we sort of have a template for that. I'm looking sort of at World War II, what happened to Germany. America and the Allies defeated Germany. They got rid of all the Nazis. They cleaned it up as best they could. And they held it for a while until they were able to turn it over to people that they could trust to be peaceful. And it actually was very successful. We have obviously very good relations now with Germany, great relations with Japan. They're going to have to clean out this area, rid it of radical Islamic extremists. And by the way, at the end of the day, who the real winners are? The real winners are the people of Gaza, because they will have been liberated from this oppressive regime. And, how long it takes to then hold it and, kind of rehabilitate it and resuscitate it, I don't know. But I can tell you this, Israel doesn't want it. Israel has no territorial aspirations here. What Israel wants is just a quiet border. And they'll hold it as long as they need to obtain that quiet border.
What should Israel do with Iran at this point? I know they have their hands full right now. They're dealing with Hamas. But what about Hezbollah in the north? What happens at that point? If Hezbollah, we've already seen some minor, incursions to a degree, but they have the tunnels, the terror tunnels. What happens if Hezbollah strikes from the north? How does that change everything, especially as it relates to Iran and potentially America's involvement at that point?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, and there's no good reason, as I try to put myself in Hezbollah's shoes, which is awfully difficult to do. But as I think of it, Iran, which is ultimately calling all the shots here, Iran has achieved, I think, all that it could possibly have asked for in this proxy war through Hamas. I don't know why they would want to jeopardize Hezbollah's assets and ultimately turn, I think, the people of Lebanon against Hezbollah, because it would result, I believe, in basically Israel, I think, would flatten Lebanon, and I believe they can. And I would not underestimate the resolve of the IDF. They will win this, and I think Hezbollah knows that. If they do enter the war, of course, it's going to engender a complexity. As to Iran, look, we got to stop appeasing Iran. I mean, this is basic stuff. I mean, at the very same time that the United States and Iran are negotiating a prisoner swap, and America is freeing up $6 billion to show America's good faith, as if America is the one between two parties to show its good faith. At the very same time, Iran and Hamas are planning this attack, and we should take these sanctions up as high as they can go.
Ambassador Friedman, appreciate your time.
Coming up, how some Israelis are serving the war effort from the sidelines. We're going to bring you the story when we come back. Stay with us. Finally today, as the Israeli-Hamas war rages on, a hopeful note from behind the scenes. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us a look at people coming up with creative ways to serve from the sidelines.
This is one of the toughest times facing Israelis in decades. Still, they have a knack for pulling together during a crisis. This is the Satya restaurant in Jerusalem. It's closed for business now due to the war in Israel, but the owner and volunteers are making a lot of amazing food for a very good cause.
We organize about bringing a lot of food, and we cook, like all week, and send a lot of hundred of plate to family that came from, near Gaza, to soldiers.
Owner Ilan Garusi and his staff have been preparing hundreds of meals a day for soldiers and those who fled from around the Gaza border.
We just cook. During the evening, we make preparation, and now in the morning we cook a lot of stuff, like pasta bolognese, kube, meatballs, and whatever we get, and we just cook, and after that we send all, like in the area of 12, 1 o'clock, everything is prepared, and we just send it.
The food is packed in cartons, picked up and transported to those in need. Garusi said he's providing the food free of charge while his staff volunteers their time.
Thanks for all our customers that during all those years that they came here to Satya and ate and drink, this money also came from you, because now we spend this money also.
Garusi's 3 sons currently serve as combat soldiers. He says while the Army may provide snacks there, the soldiers need a warm meal. He says his restaurant is just one of many helping out in these tough times.
This is the most beautiful hours of the Israeli citizen. This is our power, and we go this low. So from here, we just have to climb up, and it will be. I think this is the power of the people in Israel. We fight, and I think we'll succeed. From this point, we climb to a higher level.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And with that, it's time for your Monday motivation. Today, I leave you with this thought as we begin another week together. If you're breathing, your story is not over. God is not done with you. Trust Him. He is not done with you. Fire up your faith. God is more than able. And who are you to deny what the Lord can do? He is indeed more than able. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you can always find more of our stories on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. Let us know what you think about the show today and the stories you've seen by emailing us. You can do that, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make this a marvelous Monday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.